This is Life Rewired, the brain injury podcast for survivors by survivors. And now your host, Rob and Ashley.
Hi, Rob. Great to meet you in person on video. Thank you for having me on the show, and congratulations on your new book.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Today, we're talking with Tyler Mendoza, New York State licensed psychotherapist. And Tyler, we met in a unique way because on a previous episode, someone had mentioned that they didn't have a caregiver. They didn't know how to go about getting resources or whatever to do so. And Tyler, I put the question out there and said, help. And Tyler said, I got you. So Tyler, it's great to meet you and finally get to meet you in person here. Would you share with our audience how you got your brain injury?
Okay. I was 29 years old and I left my career. I took a year sabbatical. I went back to school full time. I was in school in Vermont studying philosophy, and I flew to San Francisco to visit my mother for the Mother's Day weekend. And on a bike ride across the Golden Gate Bridge, I was 29, hanging out with 20-year-olds. I lost sight of my mortality. I was going too fast on the bridge. And I went on the other side. There was a big hill. Short version is I was flying headfirst into a wooden guardrail that stops cars going into the San Francisco Bay Area. They found me unconscious. I had 24 stitches on my face alone. There's a big scar here. There's a part of my skull that's actually missing. And I'm so fortunate that, if it was a little bit over, I might have lost that eye. And so I feel blessed that I have my eyesight. I feel blessed that I could go back to school because they told me I couldn't. I was literally told I had to go on disability because I would never finish my undergrad program in philosophy and I would never work again. This is what a therapist and a medical doctor, they were going to put me on disability so I never work again. And my response, I said, you don't know my parents. And they said, what does that mean? And I said, my parents, they're first generation Mexican-American. They started with nothing. They worked in the fields and the canneries. They raised 8 children. They became entrepreneurs. They had successful businesses, small businesses, a restaurant, TV, electronics, repair business. They showed me that you can do anything. And I said, if I can't make it work in 5 years, I'll come back. So I finished my bachelor's in philosophy. They said I couldn't. Nobody would hire me in Vermont. I started business consultancy. I moved to New York City. I got a master's. I became a New York State licensed psychotherapist. And I had a suite of 3 offices on Fifth Avenue across from the Empire State Building 29 years after my brain injury. So whatever they tell you, get a second opinion. Whatever they tell you, trust your gut, trust your instinct, talk to other people. I've been 29 years out from my brain injury. I have a different perspective than someone who's 6 months out. So that's my story, and I get to help people. One of my greatest honors was I spoke at the Brain Injury Association of Vermont at their conference. 2,000 people, half were doctors and therapists, and about half were patients and clients. And they asked me what helped me get through it. And at one point I pulled out a Snoopy dog, because if I woke up at 4 a.m., I grabbed my pet Snoopy dog, my stuffed Snoopy when I was a kid. I'm a grown man. I slept with a Snoopy because I'd wake up in trauma, and that soothed me. And so whatever you do that helps, that isn't damaging you or hurting you in any way, might be a wonderful thing. There's a lot of options. We'll have a lot of options.
Yeah, I love that. I can't tell you how much I love that because I see so many people in our support groups that have so much potential and the doctors have told them they don't.
It's true.
And they believe them. And I honestly believe that our lives, we don't know what we can do until we try. And if we listen to people that just says, oh, you can't, you're never going to if you listen to the can'ts.
I agree. I also want to say something to you.
Yeah.
Health insurance is wonderful, but your doctor has to see twice the patients he saw 5 years ago to make the same money. Yes. So is he up to date on everything? Does he remember everything? Does he remember who you are and what your condition was? Does he have time to check the notes, or is he just winging it? He has to see twice the patients today that he saw 5 years ago because of health insurance. So they're human, and humans are flawed and miraculous. I'm flawed. I might step on your toes one day. Hopefully we have enough trust I can apologize and you'll accept it. But I believe that doctors are human and they try, but we get to also try and do our research. We have to advocate for ourselves because they may not know. They may believe some of the myths they were taught years ago.
They do. And I don't know if you've experienced this or not, but it seems like to me some of the older generation doctors are the ones that are not pushing this philosophy that you've got to go home and lay in bed and die. It seems like it's the younger generation. They're believing what they're told. I mean, are you seeing that, or is that just locality?
what I'm hearing from clients and what I experienced myself in my own experience, and what I
Mhm.
experienced from people when I was part of a brain injury group association in Vermont, the BIA, Brain Injury Association. Doctors were taught research for the first 2 years is when you show improvement. And after that, you're off the cliff. It doesn't exist. Nothing gets better. 2 years
Mhm.
and you're done. And what I've also been told is that that was based on research studies that the military did ages and ages and ages and
Wow.
ages ago. So the study was funded for 2 years, and after 2 years there was no results. And so they say, oh, well, after 2 years you don't get any better. That is based on a myth.
Mhm.
If they kept doing research, they would see I'm 29 years out. I have a successful therapy practice in New York State.
Mm.
29 years ago, they said I would never finish undergrad. I would never work again. There's always
Wow.
another. Here's the thing. When I have clients who become suicidal, they get really flipped out. And the reality is, your brain looks for an open door. And so when you're between a rock and a hard place, thinking that suicide is an option seems like an open door, and it's not a good open door. You don't get to where things get better.
Right.
We always have options, even when we can't see them,
Mhm. Oh, I
right?
believe that. Completely, I believe that. I will be the one the first to tell you that the first 3 years after my brain injury, I laid in bed constantly. And I was the one that was going, "Is tomorrow when I'm gonna throw in the towel?" And I would just pray at night like, "Give me purpose. There's gotta be a purpose for the pain." You know? People looking at me, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I started this podcast is because of the invisible injury. They look at you and they'll say, "Oh, he's great." They don't see what's going on behind the scenes. They don't see the constant headache that I have every single day. But I keep a smile on my face and I keep going. One day, maybe I'll wake up and I won't have this headache. And boy, I'll dance when that happens. But I keep a positive attitude because that is what keeps me going.
That is wonderful. And with your headaches 20 years ago, they didn't have the technology they have now.
Mm,
20 years ago, maybe you just stayed in bed all day and you couldn't work and you couldn't function or you couldn't even do the podcast because of the headaches. And
right.
now some people do Botox and they find it helpful. Some people do cold caps. They have a very cold
Yeah,
cap they put in the freezer, they put on, and it gives them some people do biofeedback. Some people take medication. You have a lot of options. And so I hope you
you
find some of
do.
those good options. We all have
Yes.
options.
I've tried all those and the biofeedback has really helped. And I will say this, I really believe that biofeedback was one of the contributors to me saying, I've got to do this book.
Yeah,
Once I started seeing things were possible, you just can't hold on to that. You got to let everybody know. You look at the support groups and how many people are out there that say,
yeah,
I have no options.
yeah.
Well, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Job Accommodation Network,
No, I'm not familiar with
Jan.
that. Oh, yes, 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 yes,
Yeah,
Jan.
yeah. A lot of people don't know about that. I had just learned about it, and I I sent them an email and I said, "You've got to do this podcast. There's people that need your resource, but they don't know that it's out there."
I agree.
So
I
yeah,
agree.
they quickly came on and did that. So it's all about education and keeping a positive attitude. I honestly believe that.
I agree. They say it's always easy when you know how, right?
Yeah,
I'm a Luddite. I'm not great with my phone, but I give it to my nephew who's 20, and boom, in 10 seconds, it can do amazing things.
yeah.
It's it's all easy when you know how. And part of what you're doing is you're showing people how, right?
Hmm.
By having them on these podcasts. You had
Yeah.
mentioned to me in the story when we started, there was somebody who didn't have a caregiver, and I had chimed in
Yes.
about that. So I'd like to speak to that if I may. You know,
Yeah.
as
Please.
as a therapist, I'm licensed in New York State. I can't practice therapy on a podcast, but I can educate people. I can share information. And so I'm going to mention a whole bunch of things. I'm going to jump around a little bit, but if you want to interrupt me or ask me any questions, please feel free.
Sure. You have the floor, bud.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Rob, if somebody has insurance, on the back of their insurance card, they have an 800 number or an 888 number. What people don't know is that most insurance companies can provide you a case manager or care provider based on your insurance coverage.
Mm.
I have had clients who've had Medi-Cal or Medicare, and they get a case manager or case provider. So that person, what they do is they are a support person. You can't find a therapist? Rob, I've been calling for 2 months. No one calls me back. I'm talking to my case manager now. You're my case manager. I need you to help me dial and find. This is what I need. I keep falling down. I need physical therapy. I Managing my life is overwhelming. I'm suffering
Mhm.
depression. I'm getting these horrible headaches. I need you. No, don't send me a list. I need your help. Call and schedule with me. We're going to be on the phone together. Can you do that for me? Care provider or case manager. They don't give it to you because you asked. They give it to you because you're in crisis and you need it. I'm really struggling
Mhm.
right now. I need your help. If somebody doesn't have insurance through their church, through their city, there are support groups, there are nonprofits who can help them. Do they belong to the
Yes.
Elks? Maybe the secretary at the Elks can help them. Do they go to a church? If nothing else, do they have a Brain Injury Association Facebook group they belong to and they can ask people for resources for their state? Okay.
Yeah. Great
We get to
information.
we get to get our needs met. We get to get our needs met.
Yeah.
Do you have questions about what I'm sharing with you so far?
I'm glad you mentioned the church because that's one thing. Our church has a benevolence fund. They have things to, if you don't ask, they can't help you. We have people that are caregivers in churches that visit, the sick and the home, and that's a great resource. Never even thought of that. Didn't even cross my mind.
I have had clients who are musical artists or actors or talents, and for some reason they need to see me and they don't have any money. And they will go online and find grants for actors or artists. $500 grant, no interest, no payback, just a grant. You need therapy? There's a grant for that. So people can
Wow.
look for grants for therapy. There's a lot of options. There's an amazing resource. If someone doesn't have insurance, they need therapy. I'm licensed in the state of New York. I do have some openings, not a lot, but I do have some openings. I am brain injury and I am recovering and healing. And I do have clients who are brain injury as well. There's an organization called Open Path Collective. And if you can't afford a therapist, I think you pay 50 or 80 one time. And after that, you get therapists at a reduced rate, like 30 or $50. It's based on your income.
Wow.
It's called Open Path Collective. And if you qualify based on your income, you pay 50 or 80 one time. And then after that, you can see therapists for 50 to $70. And the therapist will
Wow.
negotiate with you based on what your income is, right? In New York
Yeah.
City, there's the Well. You can call 301 and talk to a therapist for free, right? There's
Wow.
options, there's resources.
Do you know that these resources are available in just in New York, or do you think they have those resources in every state, or just check
So
with your local Brain Alliance?
I would say check with your local Brain Alliance. You can on Facebook. There's a brain injury associate. There's brain injury Facebook groups. There's tons of them. You just put in
Yeah.
face. You go to Facebook, put in brain injury, and you'll find a whole bunch. And so through there, you can say, "This is my state. What resources are available?" Listen, I'm having
Ah,
headaches. The Botox isn't working. The biofeedback isn't working. Does anyone have that? I live in New York. Who's a doctor? Who's helped you? Oh, you recommend this doctor at Mount Sinai. Oh, I have insurance with Mount Sinai. That's great. There's so many. Most cities, the city offices have an office of disabilities. They are a great resource.
hmm.
Somebody's a student. Have they gone to the office of disabilities? Incredible resources. So many resources. Have they can't afford to buy your book. Can they go to the library? Can they look at other Brain Injury Association books, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's great information. And that's one thing I want to, I always stress to everybody. When I talk to people, they'll say, "What's the one piece of advice you would give to anybody that's just new to a brain injury?" I say, join a support group because that's where I've learned the most. I mean, the first 2.5, 3 years, I wasn't even in a support group.
I think that's wonderful. There's been so many things that have helped me, but I find with clients, people, we think the worst. Our brains
Hmm.
are wired to go negative.
They
It
are.
takes work to be positive. If you have a positive thought, Rob, a chemical forms in your brain, it affects your mood state. You feel good, and that chemical goes away. But if you have a negative thought, that chemical forms, it affects your mood state, and that
Hmm.
negative chemical stays longer. And
Hmm.
then another thought comes and it links to that. These chemicals link and they stay longer. We are
Yep.
prone to be negative. So listen, I have a brain injury. I'm unable to work. I don't have insurance. My family doesn't understand. I'm failing all of my classes. Before my brain injury, I was 19 credits. I was Dean's honor list. I never did that well in school in my life. After the brain injury, I wake up rocking back and forth, heaving at 4 a.m., crying hysterically. I was trauma. And I grab my
Yep.
Snoopy stuffed animal and go back to sleep at night. So people think the worst. What if I can't graduate? What if the doctors are right? What if I lose everything? Don't live in what if. It's a world that doesn't exist. It just causes us anxiety. If I say, what if an asteroid hits the Earth today? My heart picks up. The cells on my skin constrict. The cells that carry oxygen in my brain constrict. I have less oxygen in my brain. Don't live in what if. Don't live in fear. Live in facts. That gets you out of jail. Live in the
Hmm.
facts. All the myths that they told you would never be successful, you never achieve what you achieve, you're achieving, you're getting better. Live in the facts. Someone says, oh, you're making it up. They don't know. You don't have to get upset.
Yeah.
They don't know. What are the facts? Here's a resource. These are the facts. Educate yourself. You're my family.
Yeah, you touched on something there that I struggle with too, is because I've seen a lot of people in the support groups. That's their common theme, is they'll say, "My family says you're making it up."
I know. I know.
If they see you have 5 good days in a row, oh, you're better. There's no more good bad days ahead of you.
Rob, when I had my brain injury, I was in undergrad in Vermont. And the kids would see me and they'd say, why don't you want to be our friend anymore? And I say, you are my friend. I had a bike accident. Oh, you're working that bike accident angle. You look fine to me. You don't want to be my friend. I'm not good
Hmm.
enough to be your friend. What's your problem? And they walk away, and I thought, they just don't get it.
Right.
I worked in catering when I was like 16 or 17. There was a guy that always complained about his back. When we had to move stuff, oh, my back. And we'd say, oh, that guy. Oh, Greg, whatever his name is. Oh, his back. No one believed him. He looked good. He went out dancing. He had dates. He rode a
Yeah.
bicycle. But, well, guess what? I hurt my back one day at the catering job. And after that, people say, come on, Tyler, come and help lift this heavy thing. And I said, no, my back hurts too much. And they'd say, oh, you're just like Greg, you big jerk.
Mm.
And I said, Greg, I owe an apology. I didn't get it until I had the experience. If you haven't walked in someone else's shoes, how can you have the experience? I can, I'm a therapist and I can read about all what it's like to be a certain religion or a certain ethnicity. I can know
Hmm.
from my clients what it's like to be a woman and suffer the misogyny of our country that we suffer in our patriarchal society. I'm glad to be an American, but it's a patriarchal society. We're not always nice to women. They make less money. We treat them badly. They have to wear those uncomfortable high heels.
Yeah.
There's always another option. There's
Yes.
always another option. Yeah.
I think that's going to be a great title for today's show. I'm going to use that as the thumbnail. Always a great another option.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. That's something that a lot of people don't even think about.
Rob, when I was going to school and doing philosophy, my plan was to go to one of the Ivies and do a master's. I was going to do an MBA. I'd been a business person. I've been an entrepreneur. I've owned 3 businesses in my life. And after my brain injury, I said, you can't do that. You have to do something different. I didn't have the short term memory. Everything has to go into long term memory. As a therapist, clients say, you remember so much about me. I say, it's because I care. Because I care, it's emotional. It goes into long term memory. You have
Hmm.
trouble with memory? Care about the person you're talking to. Think about how wonderful they are. Think about how they suffer, how kind they are, how they have a family. They have a mother and a father, maybe just like you have, right?
Mm. Yeah.
We can't know what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes unless we do.
Hmm.
Someone, when I told my mother I was going to go and get a master's and become a New York State licensed psychotherapist, she said, Tyler, school's really fun, but isn't it time you go back to work? 20 years ago, I would have cried. I would have hurt my feelings. My mom should be supportive of me. Well, my
Yeah.
mom was a farm worker as a child. She was pulled out of school to work in the canneries. School was fun. We have to work to support the family. They don't know how much work it is to have a brain injury and go to college. It's not that much fun. It's not that much fun.
Right.
So, Rob, we talked about living in the facts. My mom could be a jerk. She's not encouraging me to go to school. I want to get a master's. My mom never went to college. She doesn't realize that's important for me to go on with my career and help
Mm.
people. I live in the facts, and the facts get me out of the prison. There's a
That's
bear
awesome.
outside your front door right now. Your anxiety. Well, that bear's in a cage and he's been declawed and he's sleeping and you're in a bear-proof suit. Are you afraid anymore? No.
Yeah.
People think we get anxiety and we get stressed because of the thing. It's the meaning we attach to the thing. Challenge your brain. What are the facts? What would I tell a friend? What would I tell somebody else?
Wow.
Powerful tools. There's a lot of resources, a lot
Very
of ways of
powerful.
thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. That you said it. One word. Powerful.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
This is amazing stuff. I'm so glad you agreed to come on today because this is
I'm
good. This
I'm
is good.
flattered and excited. I'm honored. I get to share things that are going to be helpful to people.
Yeah.
That's great.
So, do you have any other resources or tools in your tool chest that you can say, try this?
I'm going to show you something. I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Bear. This is Mr. Bear. So, why does a nearly 60-year-old New York State licensed psychotherapist have a teddy bear? Because if I wake up at 4 in the morning and I can't go back to sleep, this guy, he's weighted. He's got beans or something in his butt. He's weighted. I can't go to sleep at 4 a.m. I put him on top of me. I'm out in minutes. It doesn't work every time, but it works most of the time.
Wow.
Nobody has to know you have a bear. If it helps you go to sleep, who cares? I've had clients who to start their day because they're suffering severe depression have to sit in the bathtub for an hour or two every day.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares? If somebody's going to judge you for that, they don't understand because they haven't lived through what you're living through. Who cares?
Right.
Who cares?
There is something to be said about the weighted bear. I've noticed when I go to the dentist and they'll put that lead vest or whatever it is, my anxiety is like very low.
It's true. It's true.
So there's something to that.
It's true. I'm going to share something with all of your audience because I want to be helpful. I want to give them some gifts. This is my cell phone. This is my brain. I put a ton in here. I live by this. I live by schedules. 29 years out, if it's not on my calendar, I don't do it. I'm not going to get to the gym if I don't schedule it. I'm not going to get to the dentist if I don't schedule it. And so I keep a schedule. People's like, you don't remember your calendar? No, I had a bike accident 29 years ago. I'm doing pretty good. I got to remember a lot with all these clients I have. There's a mindfulness app called Smiling Mind. It's from
Smiling mind.
Australia, I think. It's totally free. You download it for Apple or you download it for Android, and you can practice meditation for 10 seconds. You can practice meditation for a minute. You can practice meditation for 10 minutes. You don't want to do it when it becomes painful. If it's painful, stop. Do a very short meditation. Studies show that it changes the way that our brains are wired. Normally, you have an incident and then you have a response. If a mouse ran across my table right now, I'm going to get really excited. I'll be on
Yeah.
top of the table.
Yeah.
When we
Me too.
meditate, it rewires our brains. It creates space. The mouse runs across the table, do 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 do. I'm in rational mind. I'm not an emotional mind, and I have a rational response. We can change and rewire our brains through meditation, through mindfulness. Anybody have an internet signal? If they're watching your show, they can. Go to YouTube, check out Tai Chi, check out Tai Chi, yoga, Qigong. These are things that give us mindfulness and help us to be more grounded, help us be more present with ourselves. You used to not have your TV when you got to the bathroom and your phone. Now you have a TV. You're in the bathroom. You're watching TV. You're looking stuff up. You're talking to
Yeah.
people. You're reading about the news. You're hearing trauma. Give your brain a rest. Put the TV and the phone down.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the trees. Sit in your garden. Get some hobbies. Right? Watch some birds
Yes.
for a little while. Give your brain a rest. We don't give our brain a rest with the phones. Put your phone down. You're going to have withdrawals for a little bit. Eventually, you're going to feel calmer. Phones make us anxious, just like when we watch too much TV.
They do. Of course, if you have ADHD, I don't have the. I'll pick up my phone for a few minutes, then I get bored.
That's
So,
funny. That's funny.
on to the next thing. but
That's funny.
it's funny you said that because me and my co-host, she couldn't be here. She's recovering from COVID. So Ashley, sending the best to you.
Ashley, get better.
So anyway, we had started this thing where we challenged ourselves to how long could we go in the morning without picking the phone up.
That's so
So
great. That's
each
wonderful.
day we would text each other, I made it 5 minutes today, and she was, I've made it 2 hours.